Hey, pilot, welcome back to Ready for Pushback. My name's Nick Fialchi. You found another interview episode, and here we are. Today's guest is a gentleman named Ross McClure. Ross got injured on the job while flying, and he went through the whole process of workers' compensation. And it's a lot. It's a lot of things. And I know there are a lot of pilots that get injured on the job. And if you know somebody that was injured on the job, send them this episode. There's so much good information in here about what to do when you get injured, how to manage it, how to look out for yourself, and how not to listen to what some doctors may or may not say. Lots of really, really good info in here. So sit back, relax. Let's get ready for Pushback.
Most pilots don't understand what career opportunities are available in the world of aviation. They're making career decisions based on advice from friends or posts on internet forums, meaning they are taking huge risks with their livelihood without having all the details. This podcast was created to help you understand the aviation industry so you can find your dream job. Let's get ready for Pushback. Here's your host and my dad, Nick Fialchi.
All right, Ross McClure, how are you, sir?
I'm very well. Thanks, Nick.
Dude, thank you for joining me today. I'm so interested in this conversation because I saw you post on the internet somewhere about an event that happened to you. And I was like, hey, man, do you want to talk about this? And I can't believe that you said yes. So I'm super stoked.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your background and kind of where you're from and kind of set the stage for me.
Ross, a former Army Black Hawk pilot, and then kind of benefited from what a lot of us did in the kind of mid-20s, the 2016, back when it was a prototype program to bring helicopter pilots into the airlines. And so I had already had my airplane multi-engine commercial, but I didn't have all the little this and that's that you need for the restricted ATP. So I was really thankful. Envoy really kind of pioneered that at the time, 2016, and they used their own funds, and it was an idea to help bridge the gap of a pilot shortage at the time. And so I got to become an airline pilot as soon as I got out of the Army. So I was at Envoy for almost 8 years, and then flowed from there to a major. And that's where I'm at now. But I got injured at Envoy at work. I've always had kind of a bad back. That's always been part of, but it's something that I could manage. It was a VA disability, et cetera, the same kind of thing. And then something happened at work when I was flying where that kind of, I can manage this, went to something like, this isn't going to get better. And then I went off flying for almost 2.5 years. And then navigating the pilot disability stuff, workers' compensation. And then I thought I was maybe never going to fly again. And I'm still a pilot with a bad back now, but I worked really hard. At the time I had a surgery, worked through all the workers' compensation stuff, and repaired my back and other things enough to get my medical back, and came back. And as soon as I turned in my medical, they had forgotten me and left me on the flow list. So I checked my email and I see that, and they say, well, you're just going to flow. So then I just flowed. And I mean, so a huge reversal in fortunes from like, okay, maybe I'm never going to fly, to, okay, maybe I can like actually move forward in my career. And so I was at the major for a while, and it's flared up again. And this is probably going to be normal for me. I'm probably going to be a pilot with a bad back, and I'm probably going to be navigating that.
Yeah.
So that's
kind of who I am. So you were flying the line. Were you flying CRJ at Envoy?
At the time when I had the injury, I was on the 175. I was a captain on the 175. Yeah.
The sweetest plane you'll ever fly.
Underrated.
It is.
You know, people talk badly about it, especially like my people when you come from the CRJ and it feels the way it does when you fly CRJ. But yeah, I liked it.
Me too, dude. Like, what a great plane. So talk to me about the injury and how did you initially get hurt?
I had a really common problem leading up to that. It's like something like 1 in 4 men have this, where essentially my bones don't connect. A part of my bones, they depend on tissue and muscle, called a pars defect. And so I've always had kind of back pain, and then that was worsened in the Army, and so I had some arthritis, so I had a VA disability. I could always manage that with just like stretching and trying to take care of myself, etc. And I always did that on overnights. Like my favorite thing on an overnight is just walking. Like that's like my main hobby. I just loved, and it made my back and body feel better and everything. Well, anyways, I was flying in DFW. We flew to Quetera, Mexico.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. Great town.
Well, I wouldn't know. We didn't go out.
Okay.
But they have those, I don't know now, but at the time, super old school, unimproved Vortac approaches, and we'd use our RNAV technology to navigate through the mountains and do this long approach path into Quetera, and known laser strike threat. Like people just sit there with high powered lasers and have fun.
I have been lased in Querétaro. I have been
lased. So you're
absolutely familiar.
Probably anyone that flies those approaches knows this. When you go into that valley, there's just no enforcement and there's no consequences. They just and these are really powerful lasers. So I duck under the glare shield, and then this gets reported to the FAA, laser strike event. We're flying this approach, before final. Once we get everything fixed up, we're fine. But during before we get to final, they're doing that kind of when we're turning, inbound. Yes, and so
green laser.
Yes,
dude, all day.
Yeah, so we're ducking under the glare shield. My FO it was like a Mexico flyer. That was like his thing, and thank God for him, because he just knew all. And he told me, he was like, "Hey, this is probably what you're gonna have to do. This is what everybody does." And I duck under the glare shield, and the thing about that, I don't know if you've hurt your back like this, but it doesn't kind of hit right away, but then I'm feeling funny, and then the next day. This is the thing. It's not really clear sometimes. And we're flying back, and then I get what, they call radicular symptoms, which I get, that is down my leg, like changes in sensation in my leg and stuff. And I'm like, oh, that's bad. But another thing is I'm kind of getting to that age where sometimes my body just does weird stuff. So, I don't know, but it's funny because I'm talking to my FO about all this, and we're assessing ourselves, and, I'm trying to talk through it. I felt confident that I could fly, but it's more like after we landed in DFW, that was the end of the trip. I thought, okay, well, maybe this is just an intermittent or transient thing. It's going to go away. I don't know. It kind of fluctuates a little bit. I get ready to go back to work and change bases. I go up to Chicago, and I'm sitting on reserve, and I'm sitting in the hotel, and it happens. And that to me is like, okay, this ain't right. Like, I'm just sitting here right now. There's no reason for this. So I call AMOS. There's these like different, medical advisory services. ALPA uses AMOS. Really an awesome program. And he helped the doctor there and their team worked with me for years.
Yeah. Like, real quick, I would like to kind of stop on AMOS for a second. Like Aviation Medical
advisory
services, and they have a contract with ALPA, the Airline Pilot Association.
Right.
They have former AMEs that understand the FAA, and they work with you to make sure that if you're injured or have some kind of event, and maybe you lose your medical, or you think you may lose your medical, you can call them and get consultation. And they also advocate for you with the FAA.
Right.
Amazing program. I've used them a couple times myself, and just the number one place to go if you have a medical issue is AMAS.
Yeah, there are a couple of companies like that. they were heroes during the VA shenanigans when all those pilots got scooped up, fair or not.
Yep.
They knew they were able to navigate that. Yeah, he was really helpful. Anyways, he and I made the decision together, but on his guidance, like, yeah, if these radicular symptoms are coming back and persisting and it's changing sensation, then let's pause this and let's not fly. So that's the last time, I fly at that point in 2022. And I go off work, and a couple of things happen that I think this is probably what I want to get across. Is like, we have this really amazing career, and frankly worth a lot of money, and at various points I sort of just got in line. Maybe that's part of like the Army mentality, or part of it's where I kind of come from, where I was like, okay, I'll wait for my turn in line. And, so I waited on the VA, which was a terrible choice. That's one thing. Or I waited on workers' compensation, or I waited on certain doctors that I thought were available in the area. And if you're a pilot, I think you ought to get a care team that is on the level of your career. It's worth having that investment.
Talk to me, get more specific about that. What if this happened to me and you're saying I'm waiting on the VA and I'm waiting for a doctor? Are you saying like I need to be more forceful? Are you saying I need to pivot? Like, what are you saying?
Yeah, both. Yeah, absolutely. And this happened multiple times and has happened recently. I hadn't learned my lesson. I hope I have now. And I can kind of describe what my care team looks like now, because I think it's what an airline pilot's care team should look like. And that's what I really want to share. So you have something happen to you. It should only take, if you go online or you talk to other pilots, this is a really common injury actually, and really common surgery. It's a spinal lumbar fusion. And between this and the cervical fusion, I bet 25% of pilots end up getting it, because we don't have a natural job. All this sitting is not healthy or natural, and every pilot is going to have to deal with this on some level. Lumbar fusion is super common. It's unfortunate, and I'm pretty young to be having a lumbar fusion, but you can have that 3 months. Some pilots recover within 6 weeks. They go back to work. Really common. It takes me a year and a half to get to that surgery for me.
To get to the surgery. Okay.
In that time, new health conditions come up during the treatment and lack of treatment, unable to get to the doctor for basic things, and the culprits here I'm going to point out are workers' compensation and the VA. So, and it's my mentality that was wrong, which is that I said, I just need to stand in line. I need to wait. And I think if you're a pilot, you need to be in charge of your own healthcare. You need to be making your own choices. And if things aren't working, you need to, as you described it, pivot. You need to approach it differently. Skipping ahead, I have a care team right now for my back, all private medicine. All doctors that work for me on my insurance. One of them is private medicine. It's what they call lifestyle medicine now. I recommend this for every pilot that can afford it now. Lifestyle medicine.
Talk to me about it.
And yeah, lifestyle medicine is kind of an evolution of private medicine. And what it is it's a doctor that is for people like pilots specifically, high performing professionals that need an answer 24/7 via text.
Got it.
I need something right now.
You pay a subscription service to this.
Exactly.
My best buddy runs one of these, believe it or not. That's interesting.
Yeah. Now it's early on and it's evolving, and so who knows what's going to shake out of this, but that has been a game changer, and they can get you referrals on the spot. You can text them and say, I want to see a orthopedic surgeon tomorrow, and they can go across the country and find the perfect person. And why not? If you're used to being in and out of doctors, it's the opposite experience. You wait 3 months to see a doctor. I had multiple waiting lists like that. And then you go see the doctor, and then maybe let's follow up. And then it's 2 or 3 months. And then, okay, maybe I'll send you to a referral. And then it's another 2 months. And then you have appointments in order to have appointments. And, we're used to this kind of thing in the Army. But this career, So that's the mistake I made, and kind of the lesson I learned is like, as a pilot, my attorney is my attorney. Like I need to pick my attorney. My doctor is my doctor. I need to pick the team that's going to fit my career.
Okay. Is this lifestyle person local to your area, or is it like a national group?
Mine is local. I mean, it's a bit of a drive, but he's local. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's got pilots, and he understands. The biggest thing is that he's willing to sit down and go over paperwork that usually doctors, overwhelmingly, they're like, I'm just not going to touch this. So if your aviation medical examiner needs something, or especially your company. So like a medical event happens, your company's going to want all kinds of paperwork. And doctors nowadays, they have no incentive to try to deal with complicated paperwork that might implicate them in ways they don't understand. So they're just not going to touch it.
Okay. So there's a lot of rabbit holes here.
Yeah.
The first question is, will you tell me how much you pay for the monthly subscription thing?
$3,500 annually.
Okay. That seems reasonable.
But it's a sum up front.
Yeah.
And yeah.
That seems pretty reasonable, especially for an airline pilot.
Yes.
Okay. Now, my next can of worms is the event happens. The company wants all this paperwork. Go dive deep a little bit onto what that looked like, how much of a rigmarole it was, like how this workers' comp thing sorted out, because I just want the pilot that just got hurt yesterday to have a place to go.
Here's the problem: workers' compensation. So if you have a work injury, that's covered under workers' compensation law, and it's state laws usually. That is a good faith agreement managed by state law and state courts and judges between a corporation and the person. And it protects both. That's the key. And it sets strict limits on both. So if something happens to you at work and it's a work injury and you're covered under workers' compensation, that compensation is going to be limited by the state, not by your value or worth as an airline pilot or something like that. They have all these different categories that differ by state on what your compensation is, and it's similar to the VA. So if anyone has a VA disability, say, oh, okay, you lost 3% of your body, hypothetically, so you're entitled to this much compensation. But it has a strict cap that is nowhere near your value as an airline pilot. So and then what happens is you hand this over kind of to, like, they are going to manage your care. You don't get to decide when you're going to go see a doctor. And there's even limits. If you're in a workers' compensation case and you get more than 2 consultations, those cannot be used, and it's considered outside. It's like if you end up like me and you have to go to through a lawsuit after your second consultation, nothing is covered. So if some determination is made by a third doctor, this is in Illinois anyway, they cannot. And I'm not an attorney. I'm just sharing my experience, sure, obviously. So there's all these limits, and essentially what's happening is you're going to hand your care over to this system of like the state and the company and any third party that company works for. So here's what happens. I get injured and the symptoms persist. So it is like a week later. I call out sick and I say, hey, to the chief pilot's office in Chicago, hey, I got hurt a while back and I thought maybe it'd get better, and it didn't. And actually here I'm having these symptoms. I talked to AMOS and they suggested that I not fly. So they file a work injury, and they file it from when that happened. So that's kind of like a point I don't have any experience in. What happens if they disagree? I don't know, so I don't know anything about that.
And you call the union?
I think so. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yep, you do, for sure.
And I was talking to the union during this. But anyways, initially some things happen really fast. They send me to a third-party company, contacts me within a week. They send me to get evaluated. And there's a couple of evaluations. Now, when you're on something like workers' compensation, the company has the right, and it's perfectly normal for them to send you to medical examiners at multiple stages along the way for different reasons. They want to know that you're telling the truth, but they also want to make sure that it's like going the way it's supposed to. this is also a normal thing. Like my current company has a disability program that's really, it's probably the best in the industry. And it's automatic. So as soon as you join the company, you're automatically enrolled. You're a pilot here, you have a medical, you've got this disability coverage. And if you look at that, they have the privilege and the duty to send you to a medical examiner if they need to. Anyways, so I go through these examinations. The doctors say, yeah, he's dorked up. So we need to try our care, our kind of pipeline of care. It's a back injury. We're going to do conservative care. At first, it goes pretty fast. The pipeline, like the kind of process is, physical therapy. Okay, that doesn't work. Okay, well, what about pain intervention, diagnostic tools? Okay, that doesn't work. And they kind of like say, okay, this doesn't, and they get up to a bigger diagnostic tool. They're going to try like a nerve block. They're going to try something like a big injection. Then it stops, grinds to a halt. And they start fighting with each other.
Who starts fighting with who?
Yeah, all the different stakeholders and people that pay the accounts, right? So you've got the third party company that manages it. You've got the doctors. You've got their offices. They kind of bounce back and forth. If you ever see if you ever get community care in the VA, it looks like this, like Medicare and VA, they'll argue with each other. No, you pay this and you pay this, and it bounce back and back. And they're like, the VA, you'll get this letter. It's like the veteran is responsible for $0. Now, like you'll get like 10 of these because they're like fighting back and forth. So that starts happening, and they stop. Like they stop sending me to stuff. This is probably a year or so.
Wow.
This could have been done in 3 months. They could have said, all right, let's try some PT, 6 weeks later, come back. All right, let's try a diagnostic injection. The diagnostic injection doesn't work. All right, let's get you in surgery. Let's get this over with. If I'd used my own health insurance and if I had done it myself, that's what would have happened.
But so if you used your own health insurance, then you couldn't claim an OJI, right?
Yeah, and that's the tricky thing. Like, so if you say, well, it's I suppose I think you're obligated to report a work injury, and that's unfortunate. When you report a work injury, I mean, we have to do that, but you hand your care over to a third party.
Yeah, so you have no say. Even if you had all the money in the world and all the doctors at hand, you would still be indentured to this thing.
I've literally, just skipping ahead, just like as a dose of this in the future, I've literally brought cash to offices and said, please, I'll just pay outright. I'll pay for this. And they said, no, your workers' compensation, we can't touch you.
Man. Okay, let me ask you this. The whole time, are you getting a regular's captain paycheck from Envoy?
No. And that's what I was saying before. It is capped by state law.
So
now this is different. So there's Envoy and then there's the major I'm at, right? So they had two different disability programs. So I was on workers' compensation. That's managed by the state. My current company says, hey, we have our own disability program, and it's administered by the union in partnership with the pilots union. And we work with this third party company that's a pilot's insurance company. And they disperse, their policy is half your paycheck. Definitely, it's probably the best. So, and the majors, I know I talked to a person at a different major last week, and they also have something similar that. So the majors is just better.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. Big difference. Okay. So you're going down the path, and at some point there's a disagreement, and talk to me about where that crossroads was.
This is a place where my poor company, they make a big mistake. I mean, if you know anyone on workers' compensation, to slow the process down. And that's true also in lawsuits. They'll just try to starve you. Like they'll just wait you out. The company, they can wait. But in this case, they send me to an independent medical examiner, and this guy. So this is when it becomes a lawsuit. I have a very clear case. I'm working with a spinal surgeon. The spinal surgeon is like on the national board for lumbar surgeries to advise on lumbar surgeries, and is like, this guy needs surgery. Like, it's just not getting better. And I have multiple, like, it's a very clear case. This guy looks at all of that, does not perform a medical examination, and says, well, it's a muscle sprain. So I discover this is a really scary world, this world of being in disability and workers' compensation and stuff, because they snoop on you. They'll send people to like watch you and stuff. And any attorney will tell you this is true. And they have what they call hired guns, which is a doctor that works for them. And their purpose is to create a situation or a narrative that makes that's more favorable to them. Now, in this case, this guy makes a very unfavorable narrative because it's very obvious that he's wrong. And so that's when I contact an attorney. I get the most amazing legal team. That was just providence, because they work specifically with airline pilots on these cases all the time. And so,
you want to give them a shout out?
Yes. Katz Friedman in Illinois, in Chicago. They are, if you are an Illinois-based pilot, these are your attorneys for personal injury. And can I say this stuff? Can I give an ad?
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, they are responsive. Once a month, I'd have an hour-long conversation with one of the best attorneys, personal injury attorneys in the United States. And they will be honest, and they will break down. I think this is what's, like, if they think something's not going to shake out, they'll talk about it. I got a heavyweight, and the attorney's name is Bridget Kolb. And I don't know if you can put their link too, but yeah, for Illinois pilots, these are the people you want to talk to specifically for personal injury and workers' compensation. So I'm not saying they, cover every avenue of law, but anyways, she's like a heavyweight. And she's kind of smiling because she's like, oh yeah, they picked this doctor. Oh boy. And almost, if weirdly, you almost just have to feel bad for Envoy. Like they just like messed up, like they could have made a reasonable argument, but to say, yeah, all of these top surgeons that think he needs surgery, none of that exists. All of it's wrong. He has a muscle sprain. That was kind of silly, but there I was, and it delayed care. And the other thing it did is it cut off all the payments. So as soon as they send me to the IME, I get a letter. They say, hey, you need to return to work. And here I am, like in bed, sometimes unable to get out of bed, like the lowest in my life, and that's a really lonely place as a pilot. You got a beard and you're at home and you're not talking to other pilots and am I going to fly again? And you've got health problems and stuff. That sucks.
Yeah.
And it's scary to get a letter like, hey, you're, go to work, by the way. There's no way I would have passed a medical at the time. So,
yeah. So you go through this lawsuit and they clearly find in your favor. Did you win tens of millions of dollars? Like what do you get out of this? And then where do you go from there?
That's a really great question too, because no, you don't make tens of millions of dollars. It's not in fact, I would say, and I just separate this out from personal injury, right? So I'm not an attorney, but I think those are the cases. Yeah, I might say that more than once, that it's like, I hear those kind of cases where you get like, oh, they got this big settlement, right? And it's a big settlement. Workers' compensation, just to reemphasize, has hard caps and limits on everything, and it protects the worker. So, for example, they can't come back after me now. They can't. That case is settled, but it also protects the company. So, and it's limited by whatever the state says it is. So, no, like for a workers' compensation suit, as a pilot, it is nothing compared to our earning potential and even just monthly earning.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. So
I won't say the amount, but I'll say that it, by comparison for what we have as pilots, it's not, it will not even make you whole.
Yeah, I bet. And you have to pay the lawyer. So that's, yeah, for sure. It's a losing battle, but it's an honorable cause. How long were you out before you got going back again?
Yeah. So I get the surgery. and I get kind of on the path of recovery. I have a couple other medical conditions that come up around the surgery and around my treatments. I get another surgery for a different medical condition. I'm not going to say what it is. It's kind of gross anyway. All of that, like I'm just slowly working. I'm out. I've got like a back brace on. I'm hobbling, to try to get walking circles around the neighborhood to get my health back. It takes me probably 2 or 3 months. The surgeon had like a very clear, we're going to check. So they check 6 weeks, they check 1 month, 3 months, 6 months. And I'm doing great. I'm like working on PT as hard as I can. I consider this my full-time job. I want my career back. And he's really happy. So he's like, I'll sign you off for the NFL. You're great. I have a new back now. Like I have this changed spinal structure and it's untested. But by March, so I get the surgery July, I get cleared in October, and I need to work with, I don't know if I can drop this name, Wingman Med, which is another company that if you have really complicated medical cases, he is really savvy. Like he's able to navigate, so he looks at my situation, and the FAA, I'm going to kind of paraphrase him. He says, the FAA is not excited about back pain. Like, as long as you can fly and lift things, the TSA has like these clear guidelines for pilots about what they need to be able to lift and turn and stuff. So long as you're somewhat normal, and you can fly with back pain. I think if we're all honest, most of us fly with back pain. Yeah.
Oh,
so
yes.
yeah, we're all in that fight, just different levels. And so he gives me a medical, because and I submit all my information to the FAA. It's not deferred. Because it doesn't need to be, back pain is pretty normal. And I had all the stuff from the surgery, and I have all my doctors. They're like, yeah, there's no reason he can't fly. So I have the surgery July 23, cleared October 23, and get my medical in March 24.
Wow. And then how many years has that been since at Envoy?
I think I'd been there 7 years.
7 years. So you're right on the line to, like, flow is 7 to 8 years, más o menos, depending on what's happening with hiring.
Yeah. Right. So I try to be dutiful. I get, he's in San Diego, Dan Monlix, Dr. Dan Monlix. And I fly out to see him. I'm in San Diego waiting for a Spirit flight, using my benefits to try to fly home with approval. And I immediately am emailing the company. Hey, I won't mention his name, but the chief pilot, hey, Captain so-and-so, here's my medical, and send it to flight qualifications right on the spot as soon as I get the ink to paper, and check my email for the first time in forever. And there's a chart, and it was published in January, and it has my name, and it says, hey, these are the pilots flowing to American. Oops. I don't know. I should have said that.
I think everybody knows who Envoy flows to.
Sorry. Yeah, I guess that's true. Well, yeah. So like the reversal of fortune, right? So I get my body back, my medical back, and I'm flowing. And then on top of that, the union, by the way, the chief pilot's office in Chicago is amazing. They were so supportive. He's still the chief pilot there. What an awesome chief pilot.
He is. He's a good dude.
Oh, you know who I'm talking about?
Oh, yes,
yeah, he is really just a really savvy chief pilot. I'm thankful that I got to work with him like through all of it. I contact Envoy and their office staff. They're on their heels. And this is Envoy. Like if you go in the training center, they're big turnovers, they're trying the best they can, man.
Yep.
Trying the best they can. And they kind of yell at me like, oh, where have you been? I'm like, well, I've been in a lawsuit and off work because my back is broke, and eventually somebody makes the decision, you know what, you're flowing in 2.5 months, just don't come back.
Yes.
Yeah, sometimes that happens. I've had the opposite. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like a case by case thing. I've had things where like with COVID, I'd be off work, and sometimes they're like, yes, you're only on this aircraft for another 2 weeks and then you're transitioning, but we're going to make you transition in the middle of a training thing,
Yeah.
And it's just a person making a decision. And at the time, their contract was max captain pay if you were flowing.
That's right.
So I just started preparing for American.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Would you get the 7.3 or the 320?
So the 737, thrilled. Yeah. I was so excited about that.
Did Mitch Bell do any of your training?
He didn't. Gosh, that would be so cool.
It would be so cool. He's such a cool guy.
Yeah. I hope I get to experience that. But, so training was amazing. I could just gush about, I'm probably just the really typical, you came from the regional, you get to the major, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. The hotel's amazing. The training's amazing. The best flight training I've ever had in my life. American has got it down to the most precise machine. Like they have no fat.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have everything figured out. And if you do their program, it works. It's just unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it in my life. And I do that, and I do the best I can, and I get out on an IOE, and my back starts flaring up. So the truth is, so it's getting better, but the biggest lesson I've learned is when you have this career, you need to pick your team of support, whether it's legal or medical, et cetera, that is on the level of this career. Like, don't wait on the VA for 9 months to settle something important. Get the care you need. And if you're not getting it, go somewhere else. I think I've assembled that. So now everything's kind of moving in the right direction, and working on getting my medical done. But I'm off work right now with my back, and I'm probably going to be a pilot with a bad back. Like, this is probably going to be a lifelong thing where I learn to adjust to a different spine now. Yeah.
Yeah. And I always think about the what ifs and the what ifs and the what ifs. And that's why I'm always focused on, if this were all to end today, what will I be doing tomorrow? And that is, how do I take care of these people that I'm responsible for? How do I provide?
Yeah, that's the biggest one, right?
Right. It's a lot. Yeah. It's a lot to think about. It's a lot to consider. But I agree with you about, if you put the team in place to get you where you need to go, you'll be there faster and you'll be able to make a clearer decision. And that's so important.
Yeah. So there was the problem with workers' compensation, the lawsuit that slowed everything down almost 2 years, maybe more actually, because you could get this done in 3 months. And then there was also the VA. So the VA utterly just disintegrated as far as my regional medical center here where I live. They were unable to issue antibiotics. I'm like basic things they were unable to do. And I've really figured out they kind of have their thing going on. The VA specializes. I think they have a lot of expertise in something hospitals don't have, which is wounded warriors, and especially older veterans.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a huge population of these Vietnam War veterans. They're still alive, and they're sitting in there constantly needing care. And it's a huge, huge burden. And probably no one else has the expertise than the VA Medical Center in being able to do that. But they are their own unique animal, and I needed a care team that could get me flying, and that wasn't them. And so I also figured out that that wasn't the best system, and I have no doubt. Hopefully it changes, but I have no doubt there are pilots that use the VA system right now that hear this and they're like, "Yeah, I've been waiting for months for this thing, or I can't get paperwork from my primary care." Yeah.
Well, when 500,000 people go to war over the span of 20 years, you're going to have some money to pay back, and all politics aside, it's underfunded, it's understaffed, and they're overwhelmed. And that's just it. So,
and you get what you pay for. I mean, the fact is that the clinicians are amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really thankful for the doctors and the clinicians. There are some people there that it really resembles the military or the Army in a lot of ways. And in some ways, people come from the Army and they work there and they carry that with them. So you can go in and sometimes you'll have this go-to guy. And that go-to guy or gal is like holding everything up and making everything come together. And it's like, man, you are basically just continuing that ethos that you lived on. You're just doing it here at this VA hospital right now. And I appreciate them. But on the other hand, it's like the Army that, frankly, like 80% of the people work there. And what do we pay you for, Bob? What would you say you do here? And they don't, nothing is happening. And it's just, people just get paid.
Yeah.
And so,
That's true. And so you've got to be the master of your own destiny. You got to understand it,
Yes,
accept it,
that's right.
move forward. And
that's right.
That's it. And that's how you win, or at least get to the finish line. Whether or not you win, who knows?
Yeah. I think a better way to put it is like the VA does the thing they do. I needed the care team that could have helped me get to flying. I think I've put it together now. I've got like 3 really responsive, flexible, cutting edge doctors that, they work for me. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, Ross, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate the story. I think that this is so valuable for the pilot that is going through some kind of traumatic event that they've never been familiar with. And I think this is going to help a lot of people. So thank you for telling your story, and I wish you all the best, and get on that 7-3 so Taco Bell can be your sim instructor.
That would be amazing. Yeah, I would love that. Yeah. Thanks, Dick.
All right, pilots, that's a wrap on this episode, and I know what you're thinking. You need to make yourself a little bit better. So how do you make yourself a little bit better? You tighten up your resume. So here's what I want you to do. Go over to my website, spitfireelite.com/podcast, and you can download my free resume template. It is tight, organized, and it's the perfect pilot resume. It's just something I like to do for the pilot group, and it is free to you. So go over there, spitfireelite.com/podcast, and download your free resume template. While you're over there, look at all the services that we offer. Lots of great interview prep, lots of great application review. Everything you need to be a professional pilot is right there. spitfireelite.com/podcast. Thanks, and I'll see you on the next episode.